And this was the big problem that I was having with fascism, socialism, and communism. You can look up the definitions, and yes, they're different words. They're spelled with different letters, and you make different noises with your face hole when you say them. But if we're really going to define them, we have to look at what the differences between them are. And so many people right now in this country are throwing around these terms willy-nilly, without really understanding what the fuck they're talking about. And I think most people in this country are basically at the level of intelligence and common sense where they're going to hear a word and say, oh, that evokes a feeling of evil and dread in the mind of the listener, so I'm going to call him that.
Taking over the world through the cunning use of red flags, this is the New World Order broadcast, coming to you live from the end of the world.
So why red flags specifically?
Oh, well, you sat there and said that you were going to bring up communism and fascism, and they both march under red flags.
Our flag has a lot of red on it too.
A lot of flags have a lot of red, but I was specifically thinking of the Communist Party and the Nazis.
Yeah, I gotcha. This is the New World Order broadcast. We are coming to you live from the end of the... Jesus Christ. Let me start that over again.
From the end of my sentence.
You know what? Fuck it. I'm your host, the Hat Man. I'm joined in the studio by Harry, the Tax Man, who is indulging in .05 proof absinthe. And we are joined remotely by Talking Head number 6. And, Harry, what were you saying about fucking reptilians before we started recording?
Like I said, you can't label yourself anything because you're a reptilian. You're an insect.
So what you're saying is that...
Wait, reptiles are insects?
Yeah, am I a reptile or an insect? Which one is it?
Oh, either one. Take your choice.
It's funny. It's funny because a lot of people who claim to have seen alien greys say that they are actually, the feeling you get from them is much more insect-like than anything else.
And reptilian.
Yeah, and I think reptiles are supposed to be like a different species of alien. So, Harry, what you're saying is that since I identify... Oh, you got to keep those on, dude. You can't hear Talking Head. Since I identify as a reptilian psychic vampire, I'm not allowed to have a political identification?
No, you can't.
Why not?
Because you work on instinct. You don't work on what the stupid brain power people work on.
It's the instincts.
They flip-flop.
You got instincts.
Yeah, it's instinct. You can't be a child.
So I don't know, man. So what you're saying is that intellect is actually a less mature way of going about perceiving the world than instinct.
Yeah, well...
I kind of like that.
Well, you got real nature. People don't. People are like puppets. You're a puppet or a puppet master.
I feel like I'm walking through a world of children with dirty faces perpetually.
Talking Head, you got hideous children.
Thank you, Simpsons. Yes. Yeah. So my idea today was I wanted to talk about the difference between socialism, communism, and fascism, because I was visiting Talking Head, our father, Kevin, the other day, and he brought up an interesting topic, and I didn't know this, but whether or not it's true. He's reading a book right now about that time period, World War II, and saying that Mussolini was actually... the American left was very ingratiated to the idea of Mussolini. He was kind of like a hero with the American liberals at the time until he decided to side with Hitler, and I was like, interesting. So, and then I'm exploring in my head, what is the philosophical difference between fascism and socialism? And it's really difficult to pinpoint. And the more that I look into it, the more ambiguous it becomes. And I kind of feel like Talking Head, when we were talking about that electrical meter, and I was like, so Harry showed me an electrical meter for the shungite, and he was showing me how, you know, the measurement goes down when the shungite's closer to the cell phone. And I was like, I don't know what I'm looking at. So I called you and I sent you a picture of the meter, and you tried to explain it too. And I don't know, man, I've come to the conclusion that nobody really understands this shit. And I'm coming to the same conclusion with fascism, socialism, and communism. I don't think anybody really fucking understands what the differences are. I mean, does that make sense?
Well, I think that there's an argument to be made. A lot of people talk about how people look at where you are liberal to conservative as a straight line, but it's actually a horseshoe.
Okay.
And so when you're at the extreme ends of the conservative, like, you know, if you're headed toward fascism or socialism, you're actually closer to each other because you're at the ends of the horseshoe.
Right. Well, I mean, it seems to me from the research that I did that, excuse me, communism is actually more extreme than socialism.
Yes,
socialism allows for some democracy and
some
allows for
property
some
ownership
capitalism.
and things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
whereas communism is entirely about the state. Yeah.
Right. So it basically has to do with the means of production, is what I'm finding out. So the only thing that I was able to pinpoint as far as the difference between, say, the extremes, let's say fascism versus communism, and socialism is just like kind of a nice warm idea. You can have a little bit of it or you can have a lot of it. You know,
well, I mean, we have socialism in our current structure. The New Deal that came out between World War I and World War II has socialistic properties to it. You know, you look at things like the NHS, the National Health Service in Britain. That's a social program. So those are elements of socialism.
Sure, and every Western nation except for the United States has some sort of socialized universal health care. We're the only ones that keep that on a purely capitalistic free market mechanism, supposedly free market. We'll get into that too, I'm sure. But yeah, I mean, the only difference that I could really point to for the difference between socialism and fascism is, and you guys are going to have to chime in here and help me out. It looks to me like the only difference is in the fascist ideology. I mean, they're more similar than they are different. In the fascist ideology, a fascist believes in a natural hierarchy, and a socialist believes less in hierarchy, and a communist believes in top-down social engineering in order to create equality of outcome, thereby erasing hierarchy from the social structure. So really, the only difference that I can find in the 5,000 milliseconds of research that I did on this is
a lot of milliseconds.
It is a lot of milliseconds, and it all depends on how you divide them. Is really a belief in hierarchy. I mean, can anybody else pinpoint anything? I mean, I even brought up the Wikipedia pages on these philosophies. I'm not seeing a whole lot that's different.
So really a lot of it ends up coming out in the wash as far as it's kind of how you believe things should be run. So fascism is extremely hierarchical. When you get into late stage fascism, it's placing more and more power in the hands of fewer and fewer people. And that's by design. That's the way fascism works.
Well, I
Sorry,
think
what
you
you're
could
saying?
say the same for any social system, that over time you're going to end up with more and more power in the hands of fewer and fewer people. Uh, Communism, as a very extreme form of socialism, seems to just do that immediately, not over time. Like, let's concentrate power in the hands of the state 100% immediately. That way we can ensure equality of outcome. And of course, the hitch in the program is that when you do that and you have all means of production handled by the state, uh, you are building a hierarchy right there. The people who are in the government are the people with all the power, not the workers. Does
And
that make sense?
that's how Stalinism and everything like started the reign of terror and all of that, is because the issue ends up becoming is especially in a situation like that where you had a revolution. So you've got a bunch of people who kind of don't know how to run government suddenly in charge of government, and things start going a little sideways. So then all of a sudden you end up using fascist tactics to consolidate power, because it's difficult to consolidate power in true socialism because socialism is supposed to be egalitarian. So if you were to draw diagrams of the power structures of each, fascism would be a pyramid, and then socialism technically should be a segment of line. It's supposed to be an egalitarian system where you're distributing power and rights to everyone as evenly as possible, whereas fascism, by its nature, is trying to consolidate power in a head of state because he runs as a demagogue who, is the avatar of the nation.
Right. So let's establish that communism that's something where power is obviously concentrated. It's a top-down mechanism.
It's supposed to be bottom up, but yeah, it keeps ending up top down.
Oh, is it supposed to be bottom
Yeah,
up?
because you're
ideally,
supposed to be voting as a society what to do with what the state is producing and all of that. That's Marx's entire thing about redistributing the means of production, is that the people who are making the textiles or farming the land should have an equal say in what gets done with those goods and that money. So it's supposed to be bottom up.
But how can you have a bottom-up system and have any type of democratic input when the state controls the means of production? It just doesn't make sense.
Well, but that's the whole thing, is that the people are theoretically supposed to, everybody in the state is supposed to decide on what the state does. You know what I mean?
So you're supposed to have a democracy without private property.
Essentially, yes, because it's all our property, so all of us get to say what to do with it. The problem is there's always somebody who decides, or rigs what we say is being done with it, or profiteers off of being the administrator. That's the issue that you typically run into with socialism and communism, is that whoever is the administrative state ends up becoming the de facto, leader. Because they're in charge of the administration. If a vote goes a way that they don't like, they'll just tell everybody that the vote didn't go their way.
Yeah, and communism also seems to be very akin to whoever does end up winning whatever election puts them in power. They really like killing off the people that were competing against them in the election. And just look at Trotsky and all that. And I know a little bit about that because I'm a huge fan of Frida Kahlo. And Frida and her husband, Diego Rivera, in Mexico, actually had Trotsky chilling in their house in Mexico, hiding out because Stalin was trying to kill him.
Which he did successfully eventually.
Eventually. Yeah. Yeah. So,
but
I don't know.
But yeah, that was the whole thing of the reign of terror, is that you see how the mechanism of disagreement within the administrative state led to one person deciding to murder everybody who disagreed. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, but initially Trotsky objecting to the way that Stalin wanted to do things is supposed to be a feature of socialism. Instead, it became a bug that he needed to eradicate.
Yeah. So when I'm looking into these philosophies, and I brought up the Wikipedia pages, I don't even think it's necessary to put them up there. They all seem to be extremely similar. And I mean, whereas if you have a system that's based upon socialism, probably very quickly you can lead into communism. And if you have a system that's based on capitalism, it seems that you're very quickly going to fall into plutocracy and oligarchy, and you do run the danger of running into fascism. I mean, even Hitler called the Nazi Party National Socialism. I mean, that's what it was.
Well,
the only difference
thing
is that his belief was extremely hierarchical.
So the funny thing about that is, if you look into it, the reason why he called it the National Socialist Party, is because he was kind of reclaiming the term socialism. He even says this in an interview after he became chancellor or whatever in Germany, where he was taking back the word socialism from the mongrels who had sat there and deformed the word or whatever. So like he in no way was socialist. And the funny thing is, if you look at the situations with Mussolini in Italy and with Hitler in Germany, they both started off with gangs of thugs who would basically go around beating the shit out of people who were spreading communist propaganda. So they were very anti-communist.
But we already established that socialism and communism are not necessarily the same thing.
Oh yeah. I'm just saying he was very against the people who wanted to do a Marxist revolution and create any kind of like socialist, structure or anything. He literally used the word socialist in National Socialist Party as kind of like a distraction when he was trying to get more power in the Reichstag, but like before he became chancellor. Because he needed to get those votes he needed to get those seats in the Reichstag, which is basically like was their parliament or whatever. He needed to get enough of his guys in there in order to have the social pressure to have himself pushed into a position of power.
So what you're saying is that his very use of the word socialist was essentially a sleight of hand in order to get the people who were socialists in Germany on his side politically?
From what I understand, that's kind of like the consensus on the whole thing. And like I said, there's interviews where he's talking about how he's taking the word, basically like, I'm taking it back kind of thing. I'm taking it back from the people who are misusing it,
Kind of like when Jay in Jay and Silent Bob.
No, you're thinking of Randall, who's this there. He's taking it back. Yeah.
I won't even say the phrase. I'm sure we'll get banned on YouTube. YouTube fucking hates us anyway, man. Dude, the last podcast that we put out on YouTube is sitting at 11 views. Fucking YouTube hates us. I thought it was one of our best ones, too.
Gotta love those 11 views. What was that, the Easter one? I don't think I've gotten a chance to listen to that yet.
Yeah, well, nobody else has either, so you're not
well, I'll give you your 12th view later on.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I thought Harry and I did a great job on it, but I mean, to me, it doesn't seem to me that, and whether or not he's saying it, I mean, that could be politically motivated too, that in an interview he says, I was just trying to take back the word socialist in order to gain political power. If he says that in an interview, I mean, I haven't seen it. That could be politically motivated too, because he wanted to separate himself from Russia. Was Russia the Soviet Union at that point in World War II?
It was called Russia.
Yeah, so the Russian Revolution. The Russian Revolution happens during World War I. And so, yes, by World War II, they were already socialist.
Okay, so it was already
It was to get rid of Nicholas.
Oh, yeah, no, I know that, and the whole story with Anastasia and everything. I just wasn't certain if Russia had become the Soviet Union by the time World War II is taking place.
1990, 1910, it was known as Russia.
Mm-hmm.
All right, they were united.
Yeah.
They wanted to separate.
Okay.
The difference between communism and socialism And fascism's very simple.
Okay.
I'm a farmer. I got 10 cows. And the communist government comes to me and says, we own the cows. So this is what you're going to do. The socialists come to me and say, you should feel bad because you got 10 cows. Your neighbor needs a cow. You have to give the cow to your neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
So they decide they're taking half my property to help somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Fascism is the bad guy that says, you own nothing.
No, there was private property in fascist Italy and fascist Germany. And I can't think, and help me out, I can't think of any other countries where fascism has been overall implemented historically.
Well, in Spain, remember the...
Franco.
Franco.
Yeah. Was he
a
fascist?
Yeah, he was a fascist.
Okay, so he was a okay, yep. I'm not super familiar with what the government structure was, because that whole period of time and space is overshadowed by one of my heroes, Salvador Dali. So I just focus on him.
Well,
yeah, you're right. Okay, Franco.
On top of that, Franco's entire story is kind of like interwoven as a footnote into World War II and all of that, because there were, different factions trying to help him and trying to fight him who were exterior to the country and putting in support. Actually, Orson Welles. Orson Welles? Who am I thinking of?
No,
Who wrote 1984?
You're thinking about...
George Orwell.
Not Orson Welles. George Orwell. Thank you. George Orwell actually fought as a socialist in the Spanish Revolution against Franco and the fascists.
Yeah, that was 1937.
That's actually what gave him such like a terrible, that between that and being a British citizen and seeing what the surveillance state was becoming even back then, a lot of that was his inspiration for 1984 and Animal Farm and all of that. Was he actually volunteered to go down and fight against Franco as a British citizen. He went down like with a socialist group. And then he saw all the infighting between the different factions of socialism down there, and like almost got murdered because he was part of the wrong faction, and another faction of socialism came into power. All the while they're like sitting there and trying to fight off Franco. And it's like, yeah, it really disturbed him how people would get sucked into these governmental things.
I think Hemingway also got involved with that war.
That's possible. I'm not 100% sure on that one. I know
he wrote a couple books on it.
George Orwell.
I think he also fought in the 1937 Spanish Revolution.
Yeah, the Spanish Civil War is really kind of a footnote against World War II. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Spanish Civil War was finished before Germany invaded Poland, correct?
No, I think it was happening in tandem, actually. Because Poland got out in 1938, right?
Right, 1938, Poland got invaded.
Okay.
And
so it was like happening around the same time. I think Mussolini even sent people to try to like sit there and help Franco. I think Mussolini was already in power while that was going on.
Okay. It's interesting that that's not really a bigger part of the history of that whole struggle. I mean, Franco, a lot of people in America don't even know who the fuck we're talking about.
Yeah, I barely know who the fuck we're talking about. As evidenced by my lack of evidence.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Harry, I understand that generally speaking, the difference between capitalism and communism is the means of production and private property. But, and you bring this up all the time, we really essentially don't have any private property in the United States of America right now.
No, we it's called closet communism, I call it. Because in 1933 we got sold off by FDR. So therefore we are just a step away from being a citizen of the state.
Yeah.
So not a fan of the New Deal then, are we?
Oh, no. Because
Isn't that like what made a large portion of your life like financially prosperous though?
well, that's when they sold you off as piece of property, and then 2 years later, Social Security came along, and now we are a bunch of little children, and we got security, and you know what? Behind that, somebody's running it. They fooled us. They lied to us.
Well, let's define what we're talking about. Talking head, why don't you tell us a little bit about the New Deal? That the reason why you just brought that up.
Oh no, because he said that FDR sold us out. I'm assuming that it had to do with the New Deal, which was what created Social Security, led to Medicare and Medicaid. Basically, it's the largest part of our budget is covering Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and call bullshit on that because it's the military. But
I said apart from the military.
Social Security was back in the 30s. Medicaid came in the 70s, but it's a slowly creeping cancer.
Okay.
And we are children or wards of the state.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go ahead and agree with you that, I mean, if you're going to define things, and this was the big problem that I was having with fascism, socialism, and communism, you can look up the definitions, and yes, they're different words. They're spelled with different letters, and you make different noises with your face hole when you say them. But if we're really going to define them, we have to look at what the differences between them are. And so many people right now in this country are throwing around these terms willy-nilly, without really understanding what the fuck they're talking about. And I think most people in this country are basically at the level of intelligence and common sense where they're going to hear a word and say, oh, that evokes a feeling of evil and dread in the mind of the listener, so I'm going to call him that. And that's pretty much it. So we're going to have to define terms. And yeah, I agree with you that, I mean, Harry, if you don't pay your property taxes, you lose your home and your property, what you've worked your entire life in order to get. So it does seem a little bit like you're living under the grace of a feudal lord. So, I mean, we would have to define the difference. And in action, there doesn't seem to be much.
There is no difference.
Yeah, I mean, what private property do you have? I can't consider something private property if somebody can come along and take it away. Well, or if you have to continue paying for it.
You go to court and they give you a summons or something, and you say, I do not consent. And the judge says, well, you gotta have to give us that. And he says point blank, well, I am not consenting to you, so what happens is, are you going to take my property at gunpoint? And the judge says, no, we don't take property at gunpoint. I do not consent.
Yeah, I overheard this video that you're talking about. I think it was a Facebook reel. Go ahead.
But he put the judge in his place. And now the judge admitted he wasn't going to send the guys with the guns to take your property. He was going to use paperwork, words, legalese.
And then he said, well, if you send somebody, I am not going to leave willingly.
Right.
So you better send people with guns. That's what he said.
And are we headed that way?
Well, I think we're kind of already there, aren't we?
Yeah.
I mean, if
Ruby Ridge, Waco.
Yeah, Waco's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, the riots around your place in when the George Floyd. The Floyd riots, 5 blocks from your house.
Yeah. Well, that's a little different than what we're talking about.
Did that wake you up?
Wake me up to what specifically?
To the reality that shit's going to happen.
Yeah, shit can happen at any time. However, you needing to pay almost a leasing fee in order to continue to live on your property that you have paid off in supposedly the freest country in the world, where you can own private property, but if you don't pay this tax, this leasing fee, you can get kicked out of your home and kicked off your property. I mean, what private property do we have at that point?
It's called a mortgage by the bank.
Well, even after you pay off the mortgage, and I understand that from the perspective of capitalism, having easy credit creates greater wealth. To a point, it does. And that's why the banks and usury are essential to the game that we're all playing in the West. If you don't have that, then you have to scrimp and save for, 30 years in order to be able to buy your home. You're not building any wealth. I mean,
you're renting.
Well, I guess the question is what I'm talking about.
You're talking about a mortgage payment, and I'm talking about taxes. Those are essentially two different things. The first is where you borrow money from an institution in order to get something that you cannot yet afford, but you can afford to make monthly payments and pay interest. The second is you've already paid it off. The deed is in your name. You no longer have a lien holder, but you still have to pay taxes to the government. Otherwise, they can kick you out of your property. There's a difference there, philosophically.
Yeah, well, they do that.
My question would be so what's your proposed alternative solution?
For me?
Yeah, like brainstorm it. If you don't want to pay property taxes, so like should that be an opt-in, opt-out thing? And if so, how do you control people who didn't opt in not being allowed to use the roads, not being allowed to use emergency services? That's the major social issue with the whole thing is it seems unfair. And you are coerced into paying these things, but if you want to opt out, how do you make that happen? I guess would be the question.
Yeah, I'm not offering an alternative solution. The only thing I'm doing is I'm pointing out that America is very good at saying one thing and doing another, and we've been doing that for a long time. And South Park has a whole episode on this where, we figured it out. We can be a nation that claims that we want to have peace and prosperity, but we can still just go to war all the time. So what I'm saying is that if you're going to have a free market capitalist society, by definition, what you're trying to do, that's your game theory, right? I mean, that's how we're defining it. You can have private property, you're free, you can build wealth, you can build prosperity. However, the way that it's enacted, the way that the system is actually built, is contrary to that philosophical premise. That's all I'm pointing out.
Sure, but I would argue that being in a society, especially as it starts getting larger, is just antithetical to that premise. You can't have absolutely private property and be in any kind of larger social construct.
The American Indian proves that. They put their TP any place they want. They didn't pay real estate tax. They didn't have a bank own them. They owned the skins that they put on to build their TP.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up, too. The American Indians, and what I'm talking about here is the popular notion of the way that their society functioned. It was really almost like an ideal socialism. And I understand that they were extremely warlike, they were extremely tribal. I get all of those things. But, I mean, they really did practice, as far as is my understanding in most of these tribes, from each according to their ability and to each according to his need. I mean, if you are a very good hunter, you're going to be a hunter warrior. If you are very wise, you're going to be a leader. If you're very artistic or spiritually minded, you're going to be the shaman. And if you're just fucked because of disease, injury, or old age, you're not going to starve to death.
No, it was like a communist government. They look more like a communist to me, Because even if you didn't have anything, everybody from the tribe would give you something to survive without paying it back.
Yeah.
And that's why, do you remember when the wives used to lose their husbands, they cut their finger off?
No, I didn't know that at
No,
all.
you've seen that in that movie. And every time they lost a
Wait. Are
husband-
we talking about John Wick?
we're talking about
All right.
what was that Western movie with that he played the soldier that went in after the Civil War out to the Sioux tribe.
You're talking about Dances with Wolves. I don't remember
Dancing with Wolves.
I don't remember somebody chopping their
Yeah.
finger off.
Because then again, they had a very communist thing. If you had something, they gave it to you to make you survive.
Yeah. Well, Talking Head, what do you think about that? I mean, is the way that we perceive the Native American tribes, is that essentially a communist ideal? And I guess perhaps what you're saying is that type of structure is impossible to scale.
It's impossible to scale, and it's also pre-industrial too. So it's like
That's true.
So what you end up having with that situation as well, that a lot of people don't know about, is that the reason why the Native Americans were so sparse across the land and were kind of such pushovers to deal with is because prior to our really settling in here in a large capacity, they had experienced a plague that had taken out almost 90% of their population. So there were plenty of resources to go around for them to share.
Well, that's a theory, and it's
a theory, but
very probable
it's a compelling
theory.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we came over here, when our ancestors settled here, especially in the 1600s, the 15th century, no, 17th century, sorry. I mean, what they saw was an ideal land for agriculture, and it's assumed nowadays that that's because the whole country was filled up with the native tribes, and they were an agricultural communities. And after they experienced this plague, they had to go back to a hunter-gatherer type of society.
Yeah, because there was actually an account from a captain on a ship from very early on, like in the 1400s, when we had first discovered that there was land out here. And he had taken an expedition up the coast from Florida and was coming up the east coast of the United States. And in his writing, like, they didn't land to explore or anything, but he said at night, because they were scoping everything out, he said at night he looked over and he said the campfires, the amount of campfires that he saw, like, looked like the stars.
Yeah.
So
very different than what was
200 years later
settling.
Yeah.
200
years later, all of a sudden, it's not like that.
Yeah. But essentially what you're saying, I guess, is that type of system, as far as human beings and their civilizations go, is impossible to scale. Even if we remained a pre-industrial society, is that
so? If we remain pre-industrial, I would think that eventually, you'd end up with warring tribes and things like that, like you did. You know, you'd have blood grudges between different groups of people for encroaching on their hunting grounds or things like that, or So when you have abundance, you can have a society like that. It's when you live in scarcity, and particularly in a system that like runs on scarcity, like capitalism does. I don't think you can actually scale that kind of egalitarian system, like, even if it was pre-industrial, because you just have tribal fights over hunting areas and agricultural grounds because they didn't believe in ownership of property. But, if they're like, oh, hey, you guys are killing all the buffalo over here, how are we going to eat? And the other tribe's like, fuck you, it's going to cause a fight. But yeah, particularly in a post-industrial age, like the Industrial Revolution is really what turned capitalism into what the beast that it is today. Because prior to that, you had you had the merchant class that would make textiles and pottery and things like that, skilled laborers. And once you started actually creating the mechanisms by which you were taking out these large loans, or rich people were using large sums of money to create factories that people would then work at for a living instead of having their own trade. It's like that's really when it started scaling up into, you know, well, you need to pay, we need roads. How are we going to transport all this shit that we're making? Like, we can't bring all this stuff on dirt roads. We're making too much of it. Let's pave them. You know, oh, well, we got to pay for the roads, so let's instill a tax on the road tax, you know. And it's, you know, it just built up from there. It's the scale of the beast that makes all of these, you know, basically everything not be private anymore.
Harry, what'd you want to say?
Well, the point is, when we got small societies that get along, there is no jealousy and there's no, shall we say, taking the other people's land. It was the English and the European attitude was commercial attitude that wanted the Indians' land, and the Indians didn't understand that. The Indians only used the land and appreciated it, but they never owned it. When the English came over here and bought Manhattan for $24 worth of trinkets, the American Indian didn't know what he was doing.
Well, back then, $24 is worth like $80 trillion today.
Yeah,
so.
it's a number. I mean, what's the dollar worth today?
Well, but you're making a good point, and I was going to bring this up with Talking Head when he was talking about a pre-industrial civilization. Talking Head, when our ancestors finally settled here, it was agrarian, and the reason why we had the concept of private property is because the capitalist mindset, if I own more property, I can produce more goods, I build more wealth because we had money, not barter. So I think that's the primary difference. And Talking Head, I want you to chime in here if you disagree. I don't think it's industrial versus pre-industrial. I think it's barter versus monetary.
I mean, I think that that's something that probably, you know, comes in over time, because again, if you sit there and you look at like the difference between bartering and using money starts off very simple until, you know, you start getting people who are using money to make money, and you know, you sit there and you start having markets and loans and acquisitions and stuff like that. It's like all of these things start off very simple and just become more complicated over time, you know. It's hard to turn the clock back on that.
Well, it becomes more complicated. However, when your goal is not just survival, but to build wealth in an agrarian society, what did we end up with? We ended up with slavery. I mean, right there. And I'm not saying that the Native Americans didn't have slavery. They 1000% did, but certainly not on the scale that the Europeans coming over with the concept of private property ownership implemented.
There wasn't a commercialized slave trade, sure.
Exactly. Precisely. But yeah, I don't think that it's generally necessitated upon the difference between I think that it's monetary versus barter. And I think that's probably the reason why the tribes that were here when we started to settle in the 17th century were so idealistically communistic, is because there weren't enough people. And I want to talk a little bit about how these systems are used today, because of course that'll be fun. But also, let's talk to the point why these systems don't work when we're working at scale. Why can't communism work at scale? And I think it's one little trick about the human being that a lot of people don't recognize. And there was a gentleman who was doing a story on Anton LaVey way back in the day. And he said that Anton LaVey's entire career is built on the understanding of one simple human principle, a little glitch in our collective psychology. And that glitch is everybody wants to feel better than somebody. And when you exploit that glitch, or you start to have civilization building upon itself at scale, that turns into what Nietzsche described as the will to power. So we no longer, the will to survive or the will to procreate is no longer the greatest instinct of humanity, because we are the only mammalian species that we're aware of that doesn't simply compete with other species. We compete with each other, which has given us arguably an evolutionary advantage and has sped up our evolution as a species. However, what you're going to end up with, much like a logical system, a natural system like gravity, is over time, you're going to end up with more and more wealth and more power in the hands of fewer and fewer people. And Talking Head, it was kind of like you and I were discussing with Elon Musk when a few podcasts ago you had said to me, well, hey, listen, I mean, you know, he is the wealthiest man in the world. And I said, 100%. You don't get to be the wealthiest man in the world, on paper anyway, on paper, if you do not have the will to build wealth. And it's just like you don't become the most powerful people on the planet if you do not have a will to have power over others. These are essential roadblocks to building an egalitarian civilization, is that it's kind of like that essay that I was reading with you, Talking Head, when I visited you a while ago, Meditations on Moloch, and how all civilizations are essentially going to be a race to the bottom, because once you start running out of resources, somebody who can get an upper hand by doing something in a worse way is going to fuck over everybody else who is attempting to be socially responsible, etc. So yeah, I mean, when you start to implement systems at a scale like that, you are going to end up with the worst people in power. You're going to end up with the most power-hungry people in power because they have the will to be there. And you're going to end up with the most greedy people having all of the wealth because they have the will to accumulate all of that wealth. And so, I mean, that's the reason why I am never going to sit here and try to come up with some sort of alternative to the systems that we have in place, because I don't think the greatest way to go about that is to have some sort of top-down social engineering mechanism. We really do have to let nature take its course with some things. And Harry and I were talking about this in the landscape of eugenics in our last podcast.
Well, you have to get out of the game. Stop playing the game and make your own game.
Well, sure, but there's one game that's inescapable, and that's whatever game nature is playing. And when human beings start to think that they know better than nature, and they start trying to engineer those natural interactions and reshaping what a species or a natural contract is, eugenics is a great example, so is capitalism, you inevitably end up in trouble. And I don't think it's very natural for people to live in tribes of 300 million people or 1 billion people. I just think it's unnatural a priori, and that's why we're always going to end up in situations like we're in right now, and like we always will. It's just going to keep repeating. When human beings try to say that they can do better than nature and engineer a program like that, which is what society is, you're going to end up running in the face of natural processes. And that's why I will never offer an alternative, because just on that basis, I don't believe in the concept of utopia. I don't think it's possible, and I don't think it's evolutionarily viable.
Never happened.
Right, but even if it did, I don't think it would do anybody any good. Talking Ed, I want to hear your opinion on that.
Oh, I was just waiting for you to give me some air to squeeze in.
Yeah, I had a lot to say right there. My bad.
Oh no, I like how you kept switching the cameras to make it feel like a dynamic conversation if you're looking at it instead of listening.
Did you like that? Did you like that? Thank you. Appreciate it.
But no, I mean, it makes me wonder. There's a few things that sprung into my head, and the question is: so, do you think that all of this started from a will to power or a fear of someone else's will to power? Because the funny thing is that when you sit there and you look at what the excuse a lot of people use when they sit there and they do these dubious things or they consolidate power, it's like, well, if I don't do it, somebody else is going to beat me to it. So
1,000%, and our intelligence agencies operate on that perspective. Yeah,
exactly. It's like, oh well, imagine it's like us fighting against Iran to keep them from having nuclear weapons. Oh God, what if they get nuclear weapons? It's like, we've got nuclear weapons. Like, shouldn't we get rid of ours if we're mad at like there's a disconnect because it's the whole like, well, we're the good one.
Mm-hmm.
That's well, I mean, even we're the good ones. And I think that everybody through antiquity has thought that about themselves when they do terrible things or create imbalanced systems.
1,000%. And Mike Baker was talking about this on Joe Rogan a month or two ago, when it was coming to light a lot of the things that our security and our intelligence agencies have done in the past, because Tulsi Gabbard, I guess, was outing some of it. And Mike Baker's point was, hey, listen, the reason why we do these things is because if we don't, somebody else will. Would you rather have us with our finger on the button, or would you rather have Putin or Xi Jinping with his finger on the button? So it's a really good question. Is it the will to power, or is it the fear of others' power? And I forget who it was. It might have been a writer or an artist. I don't think it was a philosopher. But the way that they defined personal power is when you do not have to fear the power of any other. And I think that's essentially what you're getting to.
Yeah. And so I mean, you sit there and you look at people who like literally can't be touched, who just have accumulated so much wealth and power that there's nothing you can effectively do to them to govern them.
Yeah, like me. I mean, since I've been in the Illuminati, I mean, it's been easy sailing, man. It's fucking incredible.
Yeah, I'm glad that you got that. Did they ever print that certificate that says you're welcome, or?
Yeah, he actually did send me a giant piece of paper that just says "You're welcome."
You're welcome. Okay, good. I'm glad he wrote it down. I would hate to think that they're not like crossing their T's and dotting their I's over there.
Yeah. So when the Illuminati sent me a message on Facebook and it said, "Hey, would you like to join our order and be on the fast track to all the wealth and success you could possibly imagine?" I replied, fucking 1,000%, let's go. And the only reply I got back was, "You're welcome." So I am in the Illuminati. Now, strange thing happened. 2 weeks later, a different Facebook profile sent me the same message. So I think maybe they haven't updated their records yet. But I'm going to assume...
Well, there's some kind of power struggle in the hierarchy. Better watch out. Got to watch out which side you're on that one.
Well,
these people are not to be trifled with.
Based upon what we're talking about, what I have to do is I have to take over the Illuminati so I don't have to worry about anybody else's power.
Right. Exactly.
That's what I got to do. Yeah. So it is a good question. I mean, I don't know. What do you... let me ask you first, and then Harry, I mean, what do you think? So, Talking Head first, what do you think? Do you think that it is the will to have power over other people itself, or is it the fear that if you don't do it, somebody else is going to do it to you? It's an excellent question.
That you approach them with, that you say to them, I don't fear you because you can't do anything to me. And they got their rules, and they come across an immovable object, and now they can't explain their rules. They have a choice. They got to do you in 100%, or you leave you alone.
Right.
Now,
and you're talking about personal power,
right?
In order to
personal power have
in order to combat autocracy,
to get your freedom. You have to step forward, be fearless,
right?
Be bold, get in their face, and challenge them.
Mm-hmm.
And when you challenge them, but you know their rules of the game, and you start fighting back, you better be careful what you ask for, because you got to know what the consequences will be.
Mm-hmm.
Many of my friends have been sitting in jail because they,
Some of them are anarchists that you send money to.
yeah, oh, of course. But after they came out of jail, they don't bother them anymore because they know you bite me, I'll bite you back.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, they don't want to waste their time fighting you because the time is money. If it costs them too much money, they don't want to fight you.
And I do like the fact that you brought this back to a more atomized individualist scale, and I think you're absolutely right. And there's a beautiful scene in the movie V for Vendetta where, and I think you remember it, Natalie Portman's character is in the prison and she doesn't know that it's fake yet. That he has her in prison and he's torturing her and he's saying, all you have to do is tell me something about where V is and I'll let you go. Otherwise, we're going to shoot you. And she eventually looks at him and she says, then you better take me in back of the shed and shoot me. And he goes to her, finally, you have nothing to fear anymore. And in saying that, she's free of fear. There's a principle to her that has become greater than her life. And I'm not saying that that's something I necessarily agree with, because you can't have any principles if you don't have a life. However, I like that you brought it back to an individualist level, and that really is the only remedy against autocracy, is to be willing to sacrifice anything for your own sovereignty and your own freedom. However, on a larger scale, I think, I mean, Talking Head, what do you think? Do you think that autocracy is from the will to have power over others, or from the fear that others will have power over you if you don't build that power for yourself first?
I don't know. I feel like that's tough.
Or do you think it's different from individual to individual?
I think it's probably different from individual to individual. I mean, if you think about, like, just conceptually how something like this would start, it's going to start with, you know, somebody realizing that they could do something that's unethical and being like, oh, well, you know, but I shouldn't do that. That'll hurt so-and-so. And then they find out that somebody else has also individually, independent of them, come up with this idea and started implementing it and is using it to drive them out of business, or is, you know, so it's like, I think that it's about how scrupulous people are about what the effects of their actions are on other people. And I think that's kind of...
If you don't mind, let me stop you right there, because the concept of ethics in and of itself, unless we're going to say that the concept of ethics has a biological origin, in order to say, well, I would like to do this thing that's unethical, but I can't, but then you find out that somebody else can, because assuming they have more power than you do, you're already not in power. There's already some sort of authority set up over you, otherwise you wouldn't have that ethical concern. If ethics is a construct, if ethics is biological, you can go ahead and tell me that. That's a separate discussion.
No, so what I wasn't, all I'm driving at, I don't understand. Okay, but so
what
I'm
I'm
sorry.
saying is,
what me again. Why is this a big thing?
Yeah. So my question was, do you think that autocracy generally occurs in society because some people have a will to have power over other people, or because people need to have that power for fear that if they don't take it, somebody will take it and have it over them? So I guess my point is, one or the other has to take place first before power begins to become centralized in the hands of fewer and fewer people. You were giving an example within which somebody wants to do something that's unethical, but doesn't because it's unethical, but then sees that somebody else is and is getting away with it and is having more opportunity because they're able to get away with it. My argument is, if somebody's perceiving an action to be unethical, they are already living under an authority, because ethics is, generally speaking, a social construct, is my understanding. So that wouldn't be a priori which came first, the chicken or the egg. Is it a will to power, or is it a fear of other people's power? We're already talking about a system within which your hypothetical individual is living under some type of authority.
No, okay, so then with all presumptions having to be eliminated for reasons of presuming other authority, then yeah, I don't know. I'm going to guess that it's somebody who sits there and probably just has a will to power them.
So you don't think so you think it's really just a need to be able to control other people that's just kind of inborn in certain individuals. You don't think that it's more of a fear if I don't do this, because I can see that it's possible. So if I don't do this, somebody else is going to end up doing it to me.
Well, but sure, but that would again presume that they're under some kind of construct already, because if it's that novel of a situation and it's that novel of an idea, how would they have an understanding of the fact that this would be a bad thing?
Well, I think because you can go back to the biologics of a fear of violence because of the survival mechanism.
So but yeah, I mean, but if you're coming up with something that you don't want other people to do,
Mm-hmm.
that predates and is outside of any kind of structured society, that this person is not bound by any power except themselves.
Right, so for example, like, I need to become a warlord and take over all the villages because somebody else in another village could do it.
Yeah, but that's my point, is like, how would that thought even enter your mind unless somebody had already done it or you heard about somebody else doing it? And it's like, yeah, sure, at some point somebody has to have had the novel idea of, what if I just take that person's land?
Good
but
point.
I
so
like,
how would that idea enter your mind unless you were already contemplating having power? That's a really good point.
Yeah. So, or you would have to already have some kind of modicum of power to even do that, because you would have to have a will to power and a careless regard for others, because you would have to sit there and presume that you could either rally people to your side by promising them somebody else's shit, or that you could take on everybody by yourself, and who would dare stop me?
So really all it takes...
No matter what, you're some kind of megalomaniac at that point.
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, Harry's giving the thumbs up. Like, yeah, you made a really good point there. So really, I mean, in that situation, in a primordial situation, really all it takes is the will to power and competence. In order to enact your will to power, really all you have to have is competency. And in a capitalist system, we've subsumed or sublimated those instincts into the game of wealth building. And that's the game theory that most of Western civilization is operating under right now. Elon Musk is more successful at the game because he has a bigger number under his belt. There were a few guys that I was looking at, the wealthiest people in the world. I don't even know why they're on the fucking list. They got like 1.5 billion. Who the fuck cares?
Well, and the whole thing is that entire system's self-perpetuating anyway, because it's a situation where the more you start, the more you can get with. So it's like you never end up in your true rags to riches people are like intensely rare, because anybody who's sitting there and building in this system, it's like the more you start with, the further you can go with it. And
no, that's true too. That's true too. I mean, our game theory is built as much upon competency as it is access and connections. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, and so when you sit there and you look at, because I mean,
and that's called politics, by the way. That's what politics is.
Sure. And I think that the interesting thing is that I feel like the leadership class or the entrepreneurial class, or whatever you want to call these super wealthy, super powerful people, I feel like they've been getting less competent as time has gone on, to the point where, like, you look at the way that like some of these people run companies and what their thoughts are for what makes like a good productive company. You're like, oh my God, like this would have worked out so much better for you had you just not done this way that you're being an asshole. Like so a lot of them are on like strange power trips too, where they're like, oh well, I really shake things up at my company. I sat there and sent a letter out to everybody that sat there and said, you need to be willing to work 80 hours a week from now into infinity, or you should just leave now. It's like, why don't you just hire another person? The amount of overtime you're going to be paying that guy.
Well, maybe they're not actually going to implement it, but they want to see, like, how much on their team are you? How much of a believer are you in their private religion?
That's,
or at least how much you can fake it.
But I think that that's the currency that all of these people have gone to now is loyalty. I mean, you just look at the difference between like Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0. It's like his biggest thing when he was assigning people as cabinet members was not what kind of job they would do, but how loyal they would be to him. You know, so it's like, and Elon Musk, like a lot of it's about like, you know, that's the way he runs his companies with the whole like, you need to like be willing to give 110% in long nights and long weekends, or there's the fucking door, buddy. You like, they all want everybody to prove how loyal you are to them.
There is a good reason for that. I mean, if you're going to have any top-down structure does require loyalty, otherwise the organization falls apart. You have to have
But I think putting the emphasis on loyalty instead of the emphasis on how good you are at your job just shows that they're nervous about how good they are at their job. Nobody would, if you were doing a good job, you wouldn't need to demand loyalty of your subjects. You need to demand that they do a good job and they hold you accountable when you're not doing a good job. Loyalty is what allows you to be shitty at something and still fail your way up.
Well, maybe something that we're missing as far as the nuance of what you're talking about here is loyalty to the idea or the enterprise that we're all building together, or loyalty to you know, a cult of personality. And I think with
I feel
Trump,
like it's much more
maybe,
the second one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming that you feel that way about Trump, and I don't know enough. I've never worked for Mr. Musk or Mr. Bezos or Mr. What's the face? Zuckerberg. Yeah. I mean, if you're going to demand loyalty to your own person, then yeah, that's an autocratic method that, and once again, you're splicing away that natural mechanism by which your own potential incompetence, you would have to be held accountable for it because everybody's too scared to tell you that you're fucking up. So I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Well, I just thought it was an interesting thing to think about that like loyalty has become a new part of this entire game.
It's essential for any type of top-down,
but you know what I mean.
It's essential for any type of human organization because you have power structures and gatekeepers, and you have power brokers, and competency is as much a part of our game theory as access and connections. You have to have a certain amount of loyalty. And I mean, look at what Epstein was doing on Lolita Island. I mean, that was a way to get loyalty real fast from everybody.
Or blackmail.
Hey, what's the best way to get loyalty out of somebody? I'm going to blackmail your ass.
Get the cameras ready.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the prostitutes in Russia with the our politicians getting caught messing around with some prostitutes, and they said, okay, guy, we got you on film. We want a deal in Washington.
What the fuck happened here? I don't even know what this is.
A couple congressmen were messing around with prostitutes in Russia. The Kremlin filmed them, and by the time they got home to Washington, they got informed. We got pictures of you messing around with our prostitutes, and if you don't side with us, we're gonna probably send them to your wife.
That's a good way to do it.
Political suicide.
Yeah. What were you saying? Talking?
No, I was going to say the funny thing is in this day and age, they've actually started making fake extortion videos. It was like pointed out by a guy, like, and I kind of take his word.
Are you talking
for it.
about with deep fake technology?
So I'm sure they could do that soon, but like they just like fake videos, like they like put a spy camera in this one like government worker's room while he was over there, and like the lights turn off, and then like at some point like they sat there and analyzed the video and found out that it was edited, because like whenever you're creating video and editing it like that, you can like see certain places where it doesn't line up if you know what you're doing. Okay. And so they sat there and they realized that they had faked him cheating on his wife with a prostitute by like bugging his hotel room and putting a camera in there, and then after he left, sitting there and having a dude bang a prostitute who looked kind of like him, and just made sure not to like have him look directly in the camera. And then they tried
How do you get hired for that job?
Yeah, right.
I don't see that posting on Indeed. I'm sure our intelligence officers are doing it. Let me throw my hat in that ring. I need to update my resume. That'd be a hell of a job, wouldn't it?
I want to be a Russian deepfake prostitute.
Yeah, like, hey, Mr. Hatman, we're gonna hire you. You need to pretend that you're Boris, and you need to bang this broad over here. And you need to raw dog it, and don't worry about getting her pregnant. We're just gonna give her a hysterectomy. How much? I mean, seriously. God damn, that's a good job. Is that what intelligence officers do? Maybe I chose the wrong field.
Yeah, I'm in the wrong profession.
Yeah, no shit. God damn it. Oh well. Nah, I'm too old to switch.
I don't know if the CIA would hire you.
Why not? I'm in the Illuminati.
Nah, I don't think so.
What the fuck? You don't think I could be a CIA officer?
Nah.
Why not?
You're too outspoken.
So first, I'm not eligible to claim a political team because I'm a reptilian.
Yes.
And now I can't be an intelligence officer because I speak my mind?
Yes.
The fuck's going on with you today, Harry? Next you're going to start making fun of me for being bald. What was that?
I said nobody knows. Nobody knows.
I mean, Jesus Christ, what's your problem with me today? He's just looking at me.
It's that absinthe and birch beer, man. It's getting them all wound up tight.
Dude, trust me, there's like almost no alcohol.
I put a challenge to the head man. Let's go for a whole shot of straight absinthe.
What do you think, Talking Head? You want to join him next time you come on for a shot of straight absinthe?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. He cut out for a second. I didn't catch the first part of that. I just heard shot of straight absinthe.
He issued you a challenge.
Well, a shot of straight absinthe.
Oh, sure.
Uncut.
Yeah,
right from the bottle. Now,
whenever somebody tells me they want to put something uncut in my mouth, it generally makes me feel uncomfortable.
There's
but you seem
water,
like a good guy.
No nothing, just a pure shot. I was a vodka drinker. And let me tell you, absinthe is over the vodka. I had
we drank it straight once when we first got into it, right? Right, Hatman?
I
just
never
just
did.
To check it out. Oh, you always did the looshing. You always got it looshed up.
I'm not a huge fan of that like licorice to begin with. I just wanted to see what kind of drunk it would produce in me. And I developed a taste for it over time, but you know, I was never willing, and also like all the mornings I woke up and I couldn't remember how I ended up in an abandoned subway system playing with dead rats. You know, it's like, how did this happen? So I was never really willing to try a straight shot. I figured cut with a lot of water and sugar was dangerous enough.
The only thing is, if you wake up to a nice looking broad and you got 3 kids coming in the morning and say, "Are you my new daddy?"
Yeah, that was never my experience. Whenever I had kids waking me up in the morning and, you know, I'm sitting there in cum and mud-covered sheets, it was never that good looking of a broad, unfortunately.
All right, better
to be quite honest.
Better yet, you sit there and wake up one day and the kids don't run in and ask you if you're their daddy. They're just like, "Hey, Dad, what's up?" And you're like, "Wait, what year is it?"
Yeah, how long have I been on this bender?
This has been insane. I mean, Jesus, you look like you're in kindergarten already.
Time flies. You grew up so fast. I don't even fucking remember who or what you are.
What's your name? Show me pictures. I don't believe you.
Yeah, we're gonna have to bring you to the doctor. We need to test you and see if you have reptilian DNA. What's that?
Give me your ID.
Yeah, let's see your birth certificate.
Let's see your stock. Let's see your purpose. I'd be wearing a brown uniform with my P-38 here and my little hat with the little signature. Give me your papers.
yeah. I should dress like Hitler Youth and walk into the kids' room. All right, let me see your papers. I don't believe any of this shit. That's funny. Yeah, so I don't know. I was trying to come up with some difference between fascism and communism, and the only thing from a philosophy from a philosophical perspective that I'm able to come up with is fascism believes implicitly in hierarchy, and communism as a philosophy is anti-hierarchy. That's literally all I could come up with. They're both,
I think,
autocrat, top-down power structures that believe in social engineering, the godlike status of the state, the supremacy of the group over the individual. I mean, aside from that one thing, I really can't see how they're different.
No, I know. All I was going to say is that I don't even think it's implicit with fascism. I think it's explicitly about hierarchy. It's explicitly about the Führer and the state, and that, you know, there is definite structure to the power, and you need to remember what place you're in. And over time, that structure that has the power the top keeps getting narrower and narrower as you start deleting the base of it by killing the people who you're killing. You always got to kill somebody, so the hierarchy just always gets narrower at the top, and the base just keeps getting shaved off.
Yeah, well, hey, listen, I mean, what's the point? What's the point in having fuck you money if you never say fuck you? And what's the point in having power over other people if you never kill your competition? Why else would you do it?
What's the point of having power if you're not genociding? I mean,
yeah, and it's like we talked about on a podcast like last year. Hitler gonna Hitler.
Hitler gonna Hitler. But no, I mean, like, I think that the socialism and the communism aspects of the whole situation are like those. The funny thing is they're the ones who end up being implicit, is because they claim that these aren't parts of their structure, but they always end up being parts of the structure for whatever reason. So it's like, okay, well then we have a human problem, because the whole thing is like, you know, if there's not a Stalin, then, you know, how would that whole thing have worked out? And even with a Stalin, even with him like sitting there and doing like the mass mass removals of people from government and doctoring the photos so that people he had deemed enemy of the state weren't like in photos next to him when the party first started and shit.
Yeah.
It's like all of that craziness. It's like, and all of that tight hold on power. And it's like, even during his lifetime, they had famines and shit because the dickheads didn't understand how this stuff worked. It's like, and like, again, that's when a revolution occurs and you sit there and you take the people who used to run everything and kill them, you probably want to learn how to do your job from them before the bullet goes through their head.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can rule without a certain amount of competency, you know. And I mean, Harry, you and I were just talking about this with the lady who Trump's PR girl. Who's that? Her press secretary? Is press secretary.
The press secretary, yeah.
Yeah.
I love her.
Tits McCross Necklace, I think that's her name.
Petty
Yes. Yes, it is.
Bondi is the name.
Correct.
Bondi.
Tits McCross Necklace.
Yeah,
Correct, yeah.
She embarrassed the Supreme Court. She studied law secretly, and she gave a 14-page document and really embarrassed these judges.
Go ahead.
Took some of their old opinions that they did 20 years ago, brought it up and threw it in their face.
Yeah, and she is really good at her job, and she is a fucking firecracker. But
wow,
the point that you...
I really want to know what the hell you guys are talking about. My media sphere has not given me any of this shit.
The AG in Washington, D.C.
I don't know what he's talking about. I didn't see it, but we were talking about it just before. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, we caught it this morning. They're trying to censor her or punish her for something she said. She said, "You're only the press secretary." No, she got 2 degrees, 3 degrees, and highly educated woman. That woman is great. And by the way, she's wearing a cross now.
Yay! Yeah, I don't know why that's so fucking important.
Necklace.
I don't understand why that's so important to you. Like I said
Yeah,
before.
like I said, things are changing. But
I think he just likes anybody who's contrarian.
I think anybody who stands up to the government is my hero.
She is the government.
I was about to say that. She is the government, right?
She is the government.
Well, if you got to stand for something, you might as well do it 100% or don't do it at all.
Yeah, I like how these sayings come out when you're not quite sure where to go. But anyway, the thing that we were talking about was you were talking about how much better she is than Biden's press secretary, whose name I don't we could call her Ditzmick DEI.
Yeah, the one with the naughty
Jen
hair.
Psaki, I think, is who you're talking about.
Okay. And, my point was you do have to have a certain amount of competency to end up in any position of power. And both of those ladies have the same fucking job. They lie professionally for a living. And that takes a lot of mental work to do that all day, every day. You can't lie for a living and be fucking stupid. They've proven this. You have to be highly intelligent to be a good liar. So...
To be a good liar, sure. You can be stupid and lie, though.
Oh, 100%. Everybody lies. But to be good at it and to do it for a living, I mean, you have to be highly intelligent. So I'm not going to say, do I think that this lady is better at her job than the Psaki lady? Yeah, personally, I think she's a better liar. But I'm not going to call either of them stupid. I don't think you can get into that position without a certain amount of competency. It's like, it doesn't matter.
Pam Bondi's a lawyer. Sorry. No, I was just saying, Pam Bondi's a lawyer. Even if she's a shitty lawyer, it means she passed the bar. Only 50% of people who take it pass it. So yeah, she's obviously not a dum-dum, you know?
Yeah, you were telling me that Bondi's a lawyer. Yeah, she has a law degree. So, I mean, it doesn't matter, and people can say, well, Kamala's a fucking idiot, blah, blah, blah. And Eric Weinstein actually went on a podcast, and he was talking, do you know who her father is? Do you know what her background is? No, she's definitely not an idiot. Whether or not she plays one on TV is another story altogether. And it's just like Trump, his public persona was completely... contradicted by Bill Maher's experience when he went to have dinner with them at the White House. These people are not idiots. I don't think you can elevate yourself to that position of power if you are incompetent. It doesn't matter how many connections you have in the political sphere. It doesn't matter what type of access you are born to. If you're a fucking idiot, you are fairly quickly going to lose those connections and that access. You do have to have some kind of competency in order to rise to power.
See, I don't know if I 100% agree with that, and I get what you're driving at. I understand that, you can only fail upwards so hard, but I think that what they're competent at is all this show. They're not competent at what they do unless you're just saying, well, what they do is win elections. Then yeah, sure, they're competent. But I think that that's the big problem that we've run into. It's like, and I'll say it for either side of the aisle, is that there's a lot of people in positions of power that are just good at acquiring power or just good at media manipulation. It's a skill. But, if that's all you're good at and then you get elected, you can be shitty at your job while still not being incompetent.
100%. I mean, if you're, like I said before, you don't end up the wealthiest man in the world without a desire to build wealth, and you don't end up one of the most powerful people in the world without a desire to attain power. And, as far as political teams, the reason why I, generally speaking, do not involve myself in this nonsense, and Harry, it's like you were just saying, because human beings are fucking children to begin with. They all need a mommy or a daddy figure to tell them what to do. It's like Salvador Dali said, never underestimate the masochism of the general public. 1,000%. And it's go back to Ayn Rand's book, Atlas Shrugged. And you end up with a total lack of competency because it just turns out nobody wants to be held accountable for when things go wrong. So there's the accumulation of power, and at the same time, the shrugging off of blame. And we see that a lot in our society right now. To your point, Talking Head, 1,000%. But the real problem, I mean, if you ever want to know who does not have your best interests at heart, if you want to label something evil, truly evil, not like cartoonishly evil, not something that simply produces an evolutionary pressure and call that evil. I'm talking about something that would tear the whole thing down for its own benefit. Let's call that evil. And I really like from this one book by Whitley Strieber, he met an entity, we'll just call it, who defined sin thusly. And this is the best definition of sin I've ever heard. Sin is the denial of the right to thrive. If you're the type of person who would tear the whole fucking thing down for your own benefit, despite, let's not even get into the argument that you're cutting off your nose to spite your face, which you are. You can't have power anymore if there's no structure to have power within and over. Let's get rid of that argument. If you're the type of being that would bring the whole fucking thing down and cause a tremendous amount of chaos and suffering and destroy all the work that your species has done over millennia for your own benefit, let's call that evil for a second. And I've always said this, and this is why I don't play political football, generally speaking. If you really want to take a look at and see where evil actually lies, there's only one thing you have to pinpoint, put your thumb on. That is, where is power accumulating? Because the person who does that, who has the will to do that, is generally speaking not going to be, what do you call that? A benign dictator. They're not going to be a benign personality.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
No, I get what you're saying. I from my viewpoint, we're seeing that happen currently.
I think we've just continued to see it happen every fucking cycle. I mean, you're never going to end up with somebody in power that wants to be in power so they can fix shit. The only way you get into power is if you have a will to be in. I mean, LaVey predicted in America the formation of a benign police state, and I do see that happening. But the reason why it's going to be basically a benign police state is not because you're going to end up with power accumulating with benign individuals. It's because there's always going to be a balance of power in the American psyche necessary between the people in power need the people that they're ruling just as much as the people who are ruled need the people who are ruling them. That's why it's going to be essentially benign. It's not because we're going to end up with benign individuals in positions of power. It's because the American people always throw down when they're in the face of too much malfeasance too quickly.
The only way to look at it is if I'm a boss, I got a factory and I got factory workers. We're both equal in the sense, if I fail you to provide you with a job and I hire you to do the job and you fail to do the job, that goes away. So therefore, it's equal power. But you want to call it loyalty? Fine, call it loyalty. But we got to have a common interest in that. I like my company. I got to hire good people. The people got to cover my ass. I got to cover their ass. Because that's the only way it works. That's the only way to do it. Because no matter what you do, we all need each other one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
You want a house built? You call me. I want to talk about something on the broadcast. You know how to do to set up the broadcast. All right? So you got your gift, I got mine. But as long as we got on the same page trying to accomplish something and we agree on it, agreement is the best thing. But if we don't agree on anything, we got nothing to talk to each other about at all.
Yeah, let each other go. Never between shall meet. Talking head, what were you going to say?
No, what I was going to say is that I think that what it's come down to is that the game has turned into media manipulation at this point. And so Yeah, I agree with you that you're going to end up with people who are trying to get into those positions of power in power. It's not going to be like, oh, I want to save the world. It's going to be like, hey, I want to be the one behind the steering wheel. It's my turn to drive the truck. But I think that what has been happening more recently, and that I think is like the way this was supposed to work, is you were supposed to have people, and like Dennis was saying, like or Harry, sorry, was saying that like it's a situation where you need other people to do things, but there has to be consensus about what you're doing. And so the real power nowadays is coming from people who can convince you what you should want, not people who actually have good ideas about doing anything to fix anything. It's become no. This is what you want, and you should be incensed at the people on the other side of the aisle because they're doing this other thing. It's become dictates from the dear leaders about what everybody should get their feathers in a tough about, and that's more where
their
we're
panties
headed.
in a bunch, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of the dangerous place that I think we're going no matter what, is that it's turned into this insane media manipulation that is making people ask for things that they don't really want. They're just getting told that they want them.
Well, I mean, we've always had that since, Talking Head, maybe you know the specifics of this, or maybe Harry, you know the specifics of this, but the person who basically invented American advertising. Oh, it was the son of Carl.
It was the nephew of
Not
Freud.
young Freud.
Right.
Yeah. Basically invented the
That's
methods
1920.
Yeah. So I mean, there's going to be psychological warfare. There's always going to be psychological warfare, and it's like Terence McKenna said. He called them reality tunnels. I mean, if two people can look at the same thing and get completely different information from observing the same event or object, then there is really at that point no such thing as consensus reality. And Talking Head, I've made this point to you that I think that is the imperative of human evolution at this point. And let's step aside from government malfeasance for a second, which is, I believe, an initiatory process for this whole thing. But we got to go back in the AI. And I mean, if you can just fake whatever you want, whenever you want, and create something that is convincing to pretty much everybody who witnesses it, reality at that point becomes very plastic and it's within your hands. But it's no different from what we have been doing for almost a century, or perhaps more, perhaps since the printing press. It's just being stepped up by degrees and phases. It's not a new concept.
I know, and the bar to entry is being lowered, though, is the other big thing that's happening simultaneously.
1,000%.
So that's what really makes it like, I'd use the word interesting, but I feel like that's not dire enough. I don't know.
Yeah, good point.
But yeah, it's like that's the thing that's really going to make this a shit show, is like with the bar to entry being as low as it is to create mass delusions, essentially. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how that washes out.
Well, I think the first thing that's going to happen is people are going to become extremely cynical. And I think that's necessary, because and we've talked about this before, that we live in an attention economy right now. And the reason why these people have so much power, the reason why reality seems to fold around their manipulation of perception, is because there are so many people perceiving what they are putting out. If nobody was paying attention to them, they wouldn't have any power over reality at all.
Well, sure.
Their propaganda would fall on deaf ears because nobody's listening. Their video would fall on blind eyes because nobody's watching. We give them, you guys, people give them their power. They give their power over willingly because they're so fucking entertained by it. And you can say anything you want about Donald Trump. That's what he understands better than any politician that's come before, in my opinion, is as long as you have the attention, you have the power. Doesn't really matter what you're doing behind the scenes. To maintain power, you have to maintain attention. And in order to maintain attention, you have to be fucking entertaining. That, in this day and age, is what is going to give you the power to actually, like an old school sorcerer, actually manipulate the fabric of reality. Because I have said it before, and I will say it again, reality is fucking democratic. If everybody believes something, it's essentially true.
Yeah, small d democratic, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, as far as that goes, that's nothing new. It's just getting stepped up. And I think that people are going to become cynical. And they're going to stop paying attention. And I don't have any evidence of this. This is just my own theory. I think when people start becoming cynical that perhaps everything that I'm watching isn't true, they're going to become cynical and they're going to start from the place of, this isn't true. You need to convince me it's true, which is, generally speaking, a definition of cynicism.
Question everything.
Yeah, and you should. You should question everything. However, I think people are going to start from a place of not, is this true? They're going to start from a place of disbelief. Because human beings are extremist in everything they do. They can't be nuanced. They can't just absorb something and not immediately form a fucking opinion on it. So they're going to have to start from a place of belief to begin with, a priori. So they're going to start from a place of cynical disbelief. And in order to get people to believe anything, no matter how true it may or may not be, objectively, if such a thing even exists, you're going to have to convince them that it is true. And that is going to be through emotional appeal. It's going to be through a salesmanship process. You can say that you make sales if you're in solar or at a car dealership through logical process. I'm just showing you how you're going to save a bunch of money. That's fine. If I don't like the way the car looks, I'm not fucking buying it. People are emotionally driven. And all the appeals to take people off of their pedestal of disbelief are going to be through emotion. And that's going to be the next stage of propaganda and reality manipulation. We're going to
and we're already in that. Oh, you should be outraged gets used at like the beginning of so many fucking posts.
Well, not only that, it's going to get to the point, what I'm saying is once people build that shell of cynicism around them, it's going to get to the point where you're going to have to convince them they want to believe something, that it's going to benefit them if this were true, in order to get them to believe it. It's like all the spam that I get on Facebook. Hey, my pastor told me last Sunday at church that I need to be more giving to the poor. I'm going to give away $3,500 to the first person who gives me their Cash App information. Like, you want to believe it. So some people are going to convince themselves that it's fucking true because it's emotionally appealing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the moment that we're living in right now.
It's getting
what I'm saying is the cynicism needs to come in because we're at the true believer stage right now, which is what ends up happening before the cynicism, you know.
Yes, and that true believer bullshit, which gives our government so much ability to practice malfeasance in every fucking theater on the political spectrum, is about, in my opinion, is about to get knocked flat on its ass by AI and deepfakes. You're not going to know what's real anymore.
Oh no, yeah, I'm sure that's coming. That's why a lot of people are concerned about it. Meanwhile, did you listen?
And everybody's so on guard against it. Excuse me, one more point I want to make. Everybody's so on guard against it because of what happened with the whole COVID nonsense, in my opinion. And I think that they really moved way too quickly. They really overplayed their fucking hand. And if anything is going to give people like the psychology necessary to put themselves in a cynical shell, where they start from a place of disbelief, that was priming the canvas for the painting right there.
So I'm going to completely disagree with you. I think that what that actually did was cause weird anti-faith. Like, I don't think people are being cynical because of it. I think people are being contrarians because of it. It seemed like all of that became so politicized. It wasn't people honestly disagreeing with things. It was more like this gamut of charlatans pumping the zone full of shit that you didn't know what to believe, and then an incompetent government sitting there and being worried about what people were going to think and do, giving out bad information poorly. And, you know, the zeitgeist of all of that happening, you know, Donald Trump sitting there and be like, oh, well, I'm not going to wear one. Like just the fact that everything became this political nexus. I think that actually, instead of engendering cynicism, actually made both sides more divided on everything, and being like, well, my side says this, so I have to believe that to, you know, like it really fucked us up. I'm agreeing with you on that part, but it's like,
well,
I don't think
I think we're agreeing on everything. I think we're agreeing on everything. It did cause a greater divide. It did cause people to believe more.
I don't think it caused healthy skepticism, is my point. Skepticism.
100%. What I was saying was, I think it primed the canvas for the painting. In other words, there's going to be a psychological hiccup in people's memory the next thing that they try. And over time, that true believer is going to turn into a total cynic.
Oh, I can't wait for those people to sit there and fucking stop just eating all the bullshit that they're fed constantly. It's so obnoxious to constantly be like, all right, somebody's saying this, let me figure out why this is fucking wrong.
Well, I know, and every time you get drunk, you shitpost all over everybody's Facebook pages about it.
Yeah, well, I get aggravated.
I saw what you posted that night on our stepmother's page. You wrote like a fucking encyclopedia-length diatribe on how people need to hate Donald Trump. All he does is lie. How can you worship this asshole?
Oh, it's just that AI video just cracks me up because, like, it sits there, it has the date that he opened the Trump Taj Mahal and a bunch of money stacking up in his hands. It's like, you guys know that went bankrupt, right?
Oh yeah,
like that was a complete fucking failure.
You know that he did fail upward from that, so that is a you know, they decided they had to pay him $400,000 a month in order for the deal to go through when he was.
Oh, that's him getting backenders. Yeah, that's him manipulating shit after the fact. I'm just saying, it's like, but no, yeah, that's why I deleted it, is because I was like, this isn't helpful, and you know, it's just going to be seen as Trump derangement system. It's just when people post
proud
stuff like
of you. I'm very proud of you for deleting it when you sobered up the next morning, because I went to go look at it again and it was gone, and I was like, all right, yeah, that makes sense.
So definitely an overreaction, but the whole thing is like, it's just things like that seem to be worshipful of him as some kind of like great person. It's like, those are the people who I'm like, oh my god, like, why are you spreading this Kool-Aid? You know it's got arsenic in it.
Well,
but that's just my opinion,
and it's on par with the Democrats trying to convince everybody that Joe Biden wasn't senile. You know,
see, I guess the thing is, it's different for me because I'm not a Democrat true believer. So it's like I was very against him running. I was like, why are we not having a primary? I'm sorry. So it's like I'm like, you could tell they'd been intentionally sequestering him to keep him out of public view and shit like that.
Oh yeah, they even made an excuse about it. They were like, well, we're going to have the strategy in this election that less is more, and he's very, very busy, and he, you know, everybody knows where he stands. He's just going to come out and say the important thing. And we're like,
no, it's like, and all of the people in the circles that I run in who are left leaning, it's like, we all knew what was going on there, and we're like, really, you're gonna run the Crypt Keeper? You're gonna run the Crypt Keeper? Really? Yeah, it's like, I was kind of shocked he won the first time, but yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah. So as a non-true believer, when people post hardcore right-wing true believer shit, it kind of irks me. Because I have the same reaction when they sit there and they post, like, you know, like when people were sitting there and being like, Biden sharp his attack, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I'm sorry, what kind of attacks are you using? What can these penetrate? Because you, sir, do not know what attack is and how sharp it should be.
Right. So we're going to wrap this up in a little bit. Harry and I have to get ready for our show tomorrow at the Grey Towers.
No, yeah.
Yeah, but Harry gave me a couple of things here. Did you want to tell us what this is, Harry? Thought maybe this would be fun to go out on.
Let me put my eyeballs on.
Yeah.
This is defining a U.S. citizen.
No, I can read it. If you can't read it,
you can read it.
All right, that's fine. So he sent me a couple of posts that he took off of Facebook. The one, so this is citing cases. A U.S. citizen, citizens of the District of Columbia residing in one of the states of the Union are classified as property and franchises of the federal government as an individual entity. Wheeling Steel Corporation versus Fox, 298 U.S. 193, 80 LED 1143, 56 SCT 773. I don't know what any of those letters mean, but
that shows
it's telling you where to find the court records.
That you're not a U.S. citizen unless you belong to the D.C. corporation.
Interesting.
And if you go on the bottom of that, the other one, it shows you where your parents gave you up as a slave.
Yeah, I once again, I don't know where this comes from. This birth certificate thing,
yes,
I'm intrigued. I'm just not sold yet.
I really want like a law professor or a lawyer to like really like fucking dig deep and explain the whole like sovereign citizen thing and all of that, because it's like I see the things that people cite and all of that and which cases they're talking about, and
it's a little disconcerting.
Well, the funny thing is, like, I've seen in written form people be like, that doesn't mean what you think it means, and this is why you're reading this wrong, and you're looking at this out of context because it's referring to a prior piece of paper. But I've also seen the arguments that say that, no, this is 100% what this means, you don't know what you're talking about, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, I'd really like just like a good lawyer to like just hash it out and give the arguments like that they give for it, and then explain either why that's correct, incorrect, or misleading.
Well, you said that you were going to try to look up some videos about that last time we talked about Seste KV. Did you actually look up anything?
No, I did not look up the Seste KV thing.
Harry, what would you want to say?
I'll tell you what. I'll go before any lawyer, bring my Black's Law Dictionary and sit in front of him and let him try to talk to me.
You should just go get your law degree at this point.
What?
Why don't you just go get your law degree?
Well, someone told me I got more knowledge about law than a paralegal.
Okay.
And a paralegal only takes 2 years in school.
No.
But I can't be a member of the bar.
Why not?
Because I'm not a British citizen.
Yeah, neither are a lot of the lawyers in America.
Right,
most of them are probably American citizens.
But like I said, I've got too much effort and time and years on this that I even faced George Chelick in Milford and shot him down. And Tonkin don't want to talk to me.
Metaphorically.
No,
yes, metaphorically.
He didn't want to talk to me. So therefore, it's very simple, people. Just get copies, Black's Law Dictionary, and when you get into any trouble, go to the Law Dictionary and read the words.
Well, at least if you don't read any of it, at least slam it down on the table and intimidate.
Like I said, I don't want to bore you forever.
He uses it like a big black attack Bible.
We're not bored. I mean, we talk about it all the time, dude. Yeah, it's just like I can't find any definitive information on it.
Because the court tied it.
Okay.
Remember, the government is not working for you.
No, they're definitely not.
They're a corporation.
Mm-hmm.
They're not a country.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the battle we're living in today.
So
this country is a battle zone.
Let me ask you a question, because there's evidence that the United States is definitely a corporate entity.
Yes.
No doubt about that. But there's also evidence that the United States is also a country. No doubt about that. Does it have to be one or the other, or can it be both?
Yes. It's got to be black or white.
It can't be both?
No.
The United States can't be a corporate entity and a country?
No.
I'm pretty sure it can be.
Well, like I said, the law, the way it's written is the way it should practice, but it's not. It's a game.
So what you're saying is that it shouldn't be both.
No, it can't
but
be both.
But can it be?
It's got to be one or the other.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
As him. He's just like, no, you don't understand. He's literally just making this demand.
Yeah, well, that's what it sounds like to me. So that's what I'm asking.
No,
is this your opinion?
You can't have your cake and eat it too.
Right, you can.
Okay.
You're one or the other.
All right.
I am not a U.S. citizen according to the law. But every form they say, are you a U.S. citizen? And people don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're belonging to a church.
Mm-hmm.
Are you a Catholic, a Presbyterian, a Methodist, Amish, any of them? It's a label.
See, I'm a member of the Church of Satan. I'm a figurehead for the New World Order, and I'm a new member and inductee of the Illuminati. And
You're
according
welcome.
to you... What's that, Talking Ed?
You're welcome.
You're welcome. And according to you, the Pope still owns my soul. I sold that to the devil in 1998. Yeah. So what the fuck's going on there?
Like I said, but your church is not looking for new members.
No.
You don't need new members.
No, we don't give a fuck.
The Catholic Church needs new members.
New human chattel, right?
Meanwhile, we didn't even talk about the Pope dying the day after Easter or whatever.
Oh, did he die the day after Easter?
Yeah, and also the day after he saw J.D. Vance, so everybody's joking that, like, J.D. Vance is cursed. Because he's been to, I forget what the things are, but he's been to, like, 3 different things where something bad has happened right after he's been there.
That's fucking funny, actually.
It's a good
the most
game.
recent being the Pope dying.
Let's play your game the way you want, or get out of the game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know, man. That's something we could talk about for a few minutes. Do you guys want to wrap this up and we'll save that for next time, or?
Yeah, I feel like we're running long, right?
Promote
we're only at a minute 45, an hour 45 minutes. No, we can't promote the R show.
Okay,
this is going to come out after the R show.
It's some close. Yeah. So, all right.
We can pretend we know how the art show went. Like, so. By the way, thank you everybody who showed up at the art show.
Not yet.
On Sunday. It turned out very well.
Yeah,
I sold all my people there. Sold all of his prints. Lots of
Harry has 6 new recruits in the Survivalist Freedom Network, and they're no longer going to pay income taxes. Yep.
Well, yeah, Kid Rock made a celebrity cameo appearance. Shot a case of Bud Light.
Oh, we got a local judge contest going, and I'm flogging the woman that's running for local judge magistrate. And I said, you got a law degree? Do you know the definitions in Black's Law Dictionary? And I'm kind of flogging her a little bit.
Yeah.
And I ain't got an answer back yet.
Yeah.
Because the local magistrate judge, he's got to retire at 75. And you know how much money they make? $110,000 a year.
That's honestly not
and
that
they
much.
got to produce that to get their cut from society.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the mob, they're earners and they're bosses.
Yeah, I understand your point with that. I mean, we have for-profit prisons. The cops definitely have quotas.
Yeah.
So it's like the old question: what happens if everybody decides to stop breaking the law for a month? What the fuck are they going to do?
If everybody stops crime, the law
goes bankrupt.
Would go.
No money.
Gone.
Yeah.
The lawyers are gone. The judges are gone. Yeah. The jails are closed.
Yeah.
All right.
No, it's a good point.
We stopped using drugs. The drug dealers can't get any more than money. The prostitutes can't make any money. It's all about money.
But if you're not doing drugs and banging prostitutes, is it really worth living? Come on. Get your head out of your ass.
That's an excellent point.
Drugs is too much money. And prostitutes, I don't know. Get a wife.
Oh God, I'll stick with prostitutes. Let's end it
Yeah,
on
they're
that note,
cheaper.
fellas.
Like there's no
Yeah, prostitutes are
cheaper.
cheaper, Harry.
Right. I told
You have any idea how much a wife costs per year in this day and age?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
What about the children you produce?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I told this joke to a girl in the restaurant. The old joke is, why pay for the milk? Why buy the cow when you get the milk free? And then the other part is,
It's not a joke.
why does the woman not buy the pig or when she ends up with a little sausage?
I haven't heard that before. That's actually pretty good.
Like
That's
I said,
new.
it's all game.
Yeah.
Enjoy your life. Enjoy the game or drop out of the game.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe we'll talk about the game next time because I do
What
like
did
that,
Timmy
but we are running
O'Leary
long.
say? That LSD professor back in the 70s?
Timothy Leary, yeah.
Drop in, drop acid, and drop out?
Oh, yeah.
No, it's drop. No, hold on. It's drop. What is it? Drop out, tune in, something else with it. What, I gotta look that up real quick.
He
It's
was the
famous.
LSD professor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turned
Timothy
everybody
Leary.
onto acid.
Yeah.
Acid was it's no good. One bad trip and you're done.
No, I don't know about that.
What the hell?
It's turn on, tune in, and drop out.
Yeah,
There you go. Okay.
good show.
All right. Well, everybody, don't get married. Get a prostitute. It's cheaper. Thank you very much for watching the New World Order broadcast. And just remember, we're watching you too.
Some